Hi everybody, Dan Oman here with some exciting news. DRF Formulator, the gold standard in past performance information, is now free, exclusively on DRF Bets. Join DRF Bets with the promo code WINNING, get a $250 first deposit match bonus, a $10 free bet, and free Formulator already uploaded to your account. Access Formulator's premium features, including sortable trainer stats, race replays, personalized trip notes, and lots more. Free Formulator, exclusively on DRF Bets.
Hi everyone, David Aragona here, and I'm taking a look at the Martha Washington Stakes on Saturday at Oaklawn Park. Few stakes on that Saturday card later in the day. This one takes place a little bit earlier in that Saturday card, going off as race 4. It is for the 3-year-old fillies going a mile and the 16th, an early prep on the road to the Fantasy, their final stop on the road to the Kentucky Oaks a little bit later in the year. These fillies, though, competing in the Martha Washington, they've got to prove their way into some graded stakes later in the year, and we'll see if any of them are up to taking that step forward. Let's throw up the field for this race. Just 6 signed on to compete, and we've got a pretty even board from a morning line standpoint, as the number 4 Optionality pegged as the slight morning line favorite at 9-5 over the number 6 Secret Oath. Both of these fillies are coming off runaway victories in the recent starts. Also at a relatively short price is the Brad Cox trained Como Square. Brad Cox seems like his horses always take a lot of money at Oaklawn Park, so that's a big reason why that one is probably listed at a short price on the morning line. Though none of those horses are likely to be on the lead in this race as we move on to the Time Formulas pace projector. That designation is likely to go to the number 1 Hypersport, a horse that set the pace in an allowance race won by Secret Oath last time, but she was coming out of some sprint races in her first couple of starts where she showed a lot of early speed, so she's definitely fast enough to get to the front. I think the job for her rider, Tiago Pereira, will just be stopping her from going too fast in the early going, because she is the clear front runner in this race and just seems a lot naturally faster than the foes drawn to her outside. And we'll see if some of those horses that need a bit more pace to close into, like the 6 Secret Oath and the number 3 Como Square, get a favorable enough pace scenario for them. Let's move on to the morning line favorite and take a look at her last race in the trapeze. That is the number 4 Optionality. This race took place at Remington Park on Springboard Mile Night, and she is a dominant runaway winner of this race. She came in as the second choice, but she really took a step forward. And if you look at her PPs, as we will do after viewing this replay, she's been stepping forward in each of her recent races. It took her 3 starts to break her maiden, but ever since she's figured it out and finally broke out of the maiden ranks 3 back at Indiana Downs, she has just continued to step forward with each subsequent start. And I like the way that she finished off that trapeze last time. That was her first time stretching out beyond 6 furlongs to go the 2-turn mile distance, and she didn't seem to be bothered by the added ground at all. She really finished off that race powerfully. Now, the one knock against her is that she really has not been facing the toughest competition in her recent starts. She beat a pretty good horse when she broke her maiden 3 back at Indiana Downs, but the last 2 times at Zia Park and then last time at Remington Park in that trapeze, really not a whole lot of quality behind her in those races. I guess that doesn't matter so much when you're winning races by 6 and 8 lengths, but she's going to be stepping up to face a much sterner test in this Martha Washington. Goes out for the dangerous Steve Asmussen barn. His main rider, Ricardo Santana, getting a pretty live mount from him, so we'll see if those two can team up for a stakes victory on Saturday. But I think this horse at a short price is stepping up to face a much tougher field this time, and her main rival does appear to be the number 6 Secret Oath, who's coming off a similarly dominant performance. Let's take a look at that race last time out at Oaklawn Park on New Year's Eve. This is an allowance race that Secret Oath wins very impressively. That's her in the lime green cap on the outside, swinging widest of all into the stretch. And she is just going to swallow up her rivals to the inside. She really overwhelms this field in the final 8th of a mile. She had traveled very well early in this race, had tugged her rider, Luis Contreras, up into a forward position coming around the far turn, and he just basically had to pick his path. And once he found some clear daylight for her on the outside, she flew home in the final stages of that race. I think the final raw times had her coming home for last 8th in 12 and 1/5 seconds, which is very impressive, even at Oaklawn Park, which tends to produce some pretty fast final 8th times in the mile distance. She was really flying home at the end of this race. Now, there's actually a pretty good horse that finishes second to her in this race, Matarea. I think she was the favorite, the heavy favorite in that allowance race, and Secret Oath beat her pretty decisively, and Matarea coming into that race was stakes placed. So it feels like that 106 Time Formula speed figure does check out, and she's going to have to to probably improve once again if she's going to beat her main rival Optionality, but I like the overall trajectory for Secret Oath because she had showed some promise early on, seemed like she still had some things to figure out when she broke her maiden 3-back for D-Wayne Lucas. They tried her in a really tough spot 2-back in the Goldenrod, but it just seemed like she got a little too keen in the early stages, tugged her rider David Cohen to make an early move on the far turn, and she paid the price late, flattening out in the final furlong. She did get Lasix for the first time, that allowance victory last time, and she'll be coming often in this race out of necessity as she tries to get those Kentucky Oaks points. That's a requirement to earn those points. So do take note of that her one big effort was earned with Lasix, but I'm not going to make too much of that. I just think that this daughter of Arrogate is improving at the right time, and I think she's very dangerous if she just repeats her last race or takes any kind of slight step forward. Another horse coming out of that same allowance race on New Year's Eve is the number 1 Hypersport, and she finished about 12 lengths behind Secret Oath in that race. But do note, Hypersport was the one that was setting that pace, and it was pretty honest. You see those Time Formulas pace figures for the last race. They're not color-coded in red, but the early pace figures, both of them 1:30 at the first and second calls. That's pretty fast for a 1-mile race, and she did understandably tire in the late stages. She's stretching out once again to go a mile in the 16th here. I'm not totally convinced that Hypersport is a true router. I was impressed with her sprint form early in her career. That 1:10 Time Formula speed figure that she earned 2-back when she won going 6 furlongs, that's actually the highest speed figure any of the horses in this field have earned. But I'm just a little skeptical that she's going to be able to reproduce that form going the 2-turn true route distances. That said, unlike last time, there's really no speed to go with her in the early stages of this race, so she could get a much more favorable, slower pace to set up front, and I think that could make her hang around for a bit longer. I'm not really viewing her as a win candidate, but I think that she's the one that could get a big piece of this. She's pegged at 8-1 on the morning line, and I could see her doing pretty well here if she gets away with some soft fractions on the front end. One more horse that we do have to talk about is the number 3 Como Square, pegged as the close third choice on the morning line at 5-2. This horse, let's take a look at her last race when she won an allowance race going 6 furlongs at Oaklawn Park. That is her in the short leaf stable silks, yellow and brown on the outside, coming up to move past these leaders in the last furlong of this race. She was taking her overall career record to 2-for-2 here, and she takes over in mid-stretch like she's going to pull away and win by about 5 lengths. But you could see here her rider, Martin Garcia, on this day, not really persevering with her to the wire, just kind of easing her into the finish line. And it does get a little bit closer than maybe he anticipated at the end, as that runner-up Tort was taking a good late charge at her at the end of that race, but she won pretty comfortably. The problem with Como Square is just the speed figures. I mean, we were talking about 2 horses that have earned triple-digit Time Formula speed figures in their last couple of races going this distance, whereas Como Square, her 2 Time Formula speed figures, 71 and 82, they just don't really cut it at this level. She's going to have to improve by some 20 points if she's going to get on terms with the 2 favorites in this race, and those horses even have further upside, so Como Square might have to improve more than that. She is bred to get more ground. She's buying into mischief. The damn Pangburn, you might remember her from last year's Triple Crown season because she produced Caddo River, who I think was second in last year's Arkansas Derby, a major presence on the Oaklawn Road to the Kentucky Derby last year. But I just think overall, some of the things going on with this horse, the fact that she's trained by Brad Cox, that John Velasquez is taking the mount, that she is that half-sister to Caddo River, I feel like she's going to take more money than she really merits based on her form. And I'm not going to upgrade her last race too much because you can see in the Time Formula SPPs, she got a fast pace to close into. Those red color-coded pace figures indicate that. And the runner-up in that race, Tort, who was coming at her late, she was 54-1 in that race. And if you look up her PPs, she was 54-1 for a reason because she really had inferior form coming in. So I'm viewing Como Square as a cut below the major players that I talked about at the top of the show. Let's throw out my picks for this race, and I've got those 2 favorites, first and second. I am giving preference to the number 6, Secret Oath. I was really impressed by this horse's allowance victory in late December at Oaklawn Park, and I think she's going to relish the extra half furlong that she gets to work with here, going the mile and the 16th of this Martha Washington. So I do believe this is the kind of horse that could be a big player moving on to the major preps later in the season, like the Fantasy, moving on to the Kentucky Oaks, but she's got to keep progressing for D-Wayne Lucas, and this is just the next stepping stone towards that Kentucky Oaks. So that's a look at the Martha Washington on Saturday at Oaklawn Park. Good luck if you're playing this weekend.